Hi, everyone. My name is Sam, and on behalf of Book Soup, I'd like to thank you all for joining us for tonight's event with Tanzila Ahmed, Kazim Ali, Rami Altreby, Bushra, Rehman, and Zohra Saed presenting New Moons, Contemporary Writing by North American Muslims. Tonight's event will end with a Q&A, and to submit a question, please use the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen. If you see a question on the list that you'd like for our speakers to answer, please click the like button, and it'll bump it up in the queue, and we will try to answer as many questions as time will allow. We do have a lot of readings tonight that we're excited to present, so it can shorten our Q&A. So please ask your question if you have them, and we'll get to it if we can. And please also feel free to engage with each other and the chat area, or and the conversation and the readings in the chat area. Since we're virtual, it's nice to know you're all here with us. And we'll be hosting more virtual events in the near future, and you can learn more about them on our website. You can sign up for our email newsletter, as well as following us on social media at BookSoup. And you can also follow our Crowdcast page right here for direct notifications, and past events are also available on our YouTube channel. Please support BookSoup and our authors tonight by purchasing a copy of tonight's featured book. You can do that by clicking the green button right below the viewer screen, and it'll redirect you to the website where you can continue the checkout process. It's about to be the holiday season. It's always a really important time to support your local independent bookstore, but also especially during the holidays with so many backups in shipping and everything. So we do have our holiday catalog online now, and you can find that on our website. And if you come to the store, you can also get one in person for free. It's free regardless of online or in person. And we're open every day, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So if you're local to Los Angeles, please come say hi. And with that said, let me introduce our guests for this evening. Two of our guests. They're going to introduce the rest of our lovely guests. Tanzila Ahmed is a political strategist, storyteller, and artist based in Los Angeles. She creates at the intersection of counter-narratives and culture shifting as a South Asian American Muslim second-generation woman. She's turned out over 500,000 Asian American voters, recorded her #Good Muslim, Bad Muslim podcast at the White House, and makes #Muslim V-Day cards annually. Her essays are published in the anthologies Pretty Bitches, Whiter, Good Girls Marry Doctors, Love Inshallah, and numerous online publications. In spring 2019, she was UCLA's activist in residence at the Institute on Inequality and Democracy, and in 2016 received an award from President Obama's White House as a champion of change in art and storytelling. Welcome, Taz.
Thank you.
Kazim Ali was born in the United Kingdom and has lived transnationally in the United States, Canada, India, France, and the Middle East. His books encompass multiple genres, including the volumes of poetry, Inquisition, Skyward, winner of the Oayana Book Award in Poetry, The Far Mosque, winner of Alice James Books New England, New York Award, The 40th Day, All One's Blue, and the cross-genre texts Bright Felon and Wind Instrument. His novels include the recently published The Secret Room, a string quartet, and among his books of essays are the hybrid memoir Silver Road, Essays, Maps, and Calligraphies, and Fasting for Ramadan, Notes from a Spiritual Practice. He is also an accomplished translator and an editor of several anthologies and books of criticism. He is currently a professor of literature at the University of California, San Diego. Without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera over to our guests. Everyone at home, thank you for joining us. Thank you to all of our guests with us tonight. We're so happy to have you all. And without further ado, turn that over. So thank you and enjoy.
Thank you so much to BookSoup, and thank you also to Taz for bringing us all together. I'm really excited about the event tonight for two reasons. The first of all is that we're celebrating this amazing anthology, New Moons, Contemporary Writings by North American Muslims. And it's special to me because I edited it, but that's not the only reason it's special to me. It's special to me because it is the kind of anthology I always wish that I had from, when I was a young student, a young lad discovering literature. It's an anthology of poetry, fiction, nonfiction, drama, some cross-genre work, and it is writing by contemporary Muslims from across North America. And it on purpose, I constructed this anthology as a broad, inclusive anthology. And this is a little excerpt from the introduction describing This collection includes the religious of all stripes, practicing and non-practicing, the cultural Muslim, the secular Muslim, the feminist Muslim, Muslims of various gender identities, sexualities, and national origins. The writers within are converts, reverts, good Muslims, bad Muslims, born Muslim, ex-Muslim, and trying to be or failing to be Muslim. It was so important to me to represent Islam in all of its richness and to exclude no one from the book itself. Muslim writing has been part of the American experience for much longer than anyone knows or anyone acknowledges. And that's because Muslims were among the earliest European settlers on this continent. They came with the Spanish sailors, and they were the earliest members of the European colonies on the East Coast because they came in the form of the African laborers. So everything that happened at the beginning of this weird colonialist settler project that we call the United States of America, Muslims were there at the beginning. They literally dug the roads of this country. They built the buildings. They built the U.S. Capitol. They built the White House. And in the form of the Chinese laborers who built the railroad across the western part of the United States, there were Muslims among them too. So, you know, the reason why the anthology is called New Moons is because the new moon is in the sky. It's just you didn't see it yet because there was no light shone upon it. And so we are trying to now shine a light upon the richness of American Muslim writing. And it includes, Muslim people of all ages and all stripes, as I said. When I was growing up and, writing the earliest days, there were very few Muslim writers who were widely published and widely available to be read, either by us as younger Muslims or by the mainstream of the American audiences. There was Saed Ali, whose first book in the United States was published in 1987. And then before him, there was probably Daniel Moore, Abdulhai Moore, who was publishing somewhat earlier than Saed, but was like a little more fringe outside of the mainstream, right? I mean, Saed Ali's publishers were Wesleyan and Norton, big famous publishers, and Abdulhai was publishing with smaller presses. But, other than the two of them, there were very, very few. None that I can think of off the top of my head, but very, very few. And now it seems like, there is such a great number of Muslim writers publishing, even since my own first book came out in 2005. And so it's kind of amazing to be able to even have an anthology at all, although you'll see there are many older people in this anthology. They too were writing and trying to publish before, but maybe did not have access. So it's something that we always will think about, is how to widen and broaden the audience, how to bring more people in. So I want to close my introduction just by reading two quick poems. I'm going to read a poem. I did not include any of my own poems in the anthology. I wanted to make as much space as possible in there for other writers. So my own writing is not in the anthology. So I did want to read you one poem tonight, short poem. But before I read that, I want to read you a poem by Saed Ali, who is in many ways our forebearer, forefather, forebrother, somebody to us. And this is a poem called Tonight, and you may know it. It's a ghazal that he wrote in English. And its epigraph is from a Lawrence Hope: pale hands I loved beside the Shalimar. Where are you? Who lies beneath your spell tonight? Whom else from rapture's road will you expel tonight? These fabrics of cashmere to make me beautiful, trinket to gem, me to adorn, how tell tonight? I beg for haven, prisons let open your gates. A refugee from belief seeks a cell tonight. God's vintage loneliness is turned to vinegar. All the archangels, their wings frozen, fell tonight. Lord, cried out the idols, don't let us be broken. Only we can convert the infidel tonight. Mogul ceilings, let your mirrored convexities multiply me at once under your spell tonight. He's freed some fire from ice in pity for heaven. He's left open for God the doors to hell tonight. In heart's veined temple, all statues have been smashed. No priest in saffron's left to toll its knell tonight. God, limit these punishments. There is still judgment day. I'm a mere sinner. I am no infidel tonight. Executioners near the woman at the window. Damn you, Elijah. I'll bless Jezebel tonight. The hunt is over, and I hear the call to prayer fade into that of the wounded gazelle tonight. My rivals for your love, you've invited them all. This is mere insult. This is no farewell tonight. And I, Shahid, only am escaped to tell thee, God sobs in my arms. Call me Ishmael tonight. So that is Dear Agha Shahid Ali. And I would like to read to you a poem that is called Pulse. Pulse. And you know, this is in dedication. These verdicts that are coming, have come and are coming. These verdicts that just remind us it is okay by this country. It is okay for people to come and kill us. Pulse. To the sharp report in the dark, the season comes home. Long tongue sound between hand and arm, between mouth and flesh. Hold this moment, river, still. What if it was my life? To return after years to the same province of danger, an old town you know, like the handle, the bump stock, the trigger. I want to return to the boat that bore me here from the far shore years ago. What I lived in those languages I forgot, the places I left that I want to return to. Were we seen? Were we spoken? Were all the wolves baying for our blood, met at the edge of the bright darkness of rain? Time cannot fulfill its promise to splinter, return, or slow. Vow, this wheel, this we will, this wheel we even wean, we in the world would wolve a low vow fold, worn low at the hip, to be a solid soldier who soiled his souled soul for the chance to be the first to aim, first to fire, to fly. In the crosshairs, I am heir to know or to hold. I am on both sides of the gun, toll as sound or cost, one that never ends and the other never returns. Any embrace is the first error in meaning's slope, wrought by thought that one could reach another, touch his shape, known in two genders, like Orlando, whose tongue newly woke. To pronounce any word for God or man means to enter violence's fold. No oath, sworn to save, no salvation, no salve, no valor, no ovation, no nation. So I'm super excited to hear all the readers that are here tonight, some of them very old friends and some of them new friends. But kicking us off is an old friend indeed, Bushra Rehman, who from my old New York days in the late 90s and early 2000s, you know, there were like two of us at every reading, two Muslim people, you know, Bushra and me. And then Zohra was there sometime soon, but it was lonely. It was a lonely time. You couldn't look around, and now there's, you know, everywhere basically, you know. So it's so great to hear you again and to see you. You look so wonderful. And please, everyone, welcome Bushra.
Hey, everyone. That intro gave me chills. Thank you for the historical journey and the reminder of Pulse, and that, you know, we could have been there. And it's just intense. It's intense. I have not been doing readings during the pandemic. So when I sat down to do this reading, I mean, I'm doing it because I'm excited to be part of this anthology as well. And Kazim and Taz and Remy and everyone, Zohra, who's part of it. But as I have just 3 short poems, so I thought I would open with a kind of a reflection, which you as an audience can join in. I just jotted down some notes of things that I've learned in the pandemic in no particular order, and you're welcome in the chat to put down things that you've learned. I'm going to be reading from the screen here. I mean, this is just, again, in no particular order. I've learned that eventually my eyebrows will stop growing if I don't do anything about it. I've learned that you really do have to go to the dentist every 6 months. I've learned I should not release a country music song called I Was About to Leave You, but then they declared a global pandemic. For many reasons, I should not do country. I've learned that you can make yourself look a lot younger on Zoom, and that I'm as interested in Zoom makeup as I am in real makeup, which is not at all. I've learned that the people I love, I could lose them overnight, and that there is another side of consciousness, of the beyond. I don't know what it is. I don't necessarily believe in heaven and hell, but I do and have experienced the light of all the people I know who've passed, which has been about 30, 35 during this pandemic, close people, as well as in my circles. I've learned that if you fake prayer enough, it starts to work. And those are just some of the things I learned. And I thought if anyone wanted to put some things that they learned in the chat, I could read some of them out loud. Maybe I'll do like a first few if anyone feels like putting that up. But if not, and you can do that at any point, I will just, you didn't realize it was going to be interactive, right? I will just go ahead and begin reading. I'll give a moment to see if anyone would like to. Remy said, I learned that you don't need much water to take a bath. That is good. All these things are real practical, good stuff. Thank you. Thank you, Rami. All right. If there's anyone else, I'll take a moment to breathe and then I'll just launch into some of the readings. Okay. So, as I mentioned, there have been a lot of transitions and passings in my life. I'm sure that many people can relate to that. And right now I'm witnessing, a major transition of my father leaving the world. And, when I think about his legacy, I think about, just one of the things he did, which we didn't realize this until much later. And my sister was reading a book about Muslim communities in the United States, that he helped found one of the first Sunni masjids in New York City. He came here in the 70s, and, any place could become a masjid, as you know, any place that you pray. But it was one of the first, and of course we have Malcolm X's masjids. We have the masjids in Harlem, but this was it was built with from scratch with a dome and a minar, and it was made by Pakistanis in Corona, Queens. And I wrote a poem about this masjid, and it's in the anthology. And I'll just read that first. Masjid. The minar and dome of our masjid took longer to grow than trees. Our fathers bought the land, then tilled it. Before that, it was a parking lot for our neighbors, the Jehovah's Witness. They sold it to us when the doors weren't bringing in enough donations. Our fathers sowed the seeds then, Qurans and Janamazes. And all my years from when I was 4 to 16, the walls went up, and then the dome grew the same pace my breast did. The minar too grew to reach the heights of the Queen's sky, push up past the telephone lines, let itself poke up, respectful still of the Episcopalian church steeple next to it, the flat brick surface of the kingdom of the Jehovah's Witness. It was fine real estate for religion on National Street, a church, a kingdom, and a masjid, crammed next to each other, wall to wall and skin to skin. And if you crossed the street, there was a Catholic store selling crucifixes and paintings of women and men in hell burning. The sinners looked like all of us, but I always thought that all of us in our agony looked like Jesus. So you can find that in the New Moons anthology. You can also find this next poem, Rapunzel's Mother, or a Pakistani woman newly arrived in America. And I was, I go home, I'm home most days now, and I actually found the original photo that inspired this poem, which was a picture of my mother pregnant with me in a supermarket in Queens with just this giant smile on her face. And it made me think, because she grew up with a lot of food scarcity. And I think that, you know, for those of you who know the original tale of Rapunzel, you know, the reason that, you know, she's the one with the long hair, she's in that tower is because her mother is pregnant and they live next door to a witch of course, it's a fairy tale. And so, not that I'm against witches, I believe very much. But I think that there is a way that, so she got hungry, she was pregnant, she wanted the vegetables in the witch's garden, and her husband went and stole them for her and she caught him, the witch caught him. And that's how he promised his firstborn child. So I think about that often as a metaphor for us second gen, you know, how my parents came here to avoid food scarcity and, you know, ended up losing their children to this country in a way, you know, we became very different than they planned for us to be. Rapunzel's mother, or a Pakistani woman, newly arrived in America. And with a cabbage, a box of eggs so clean, she could easily forget the source of their existence, my mother filled her silver cart in line and moved in line to make her purchase. The cashier turned a sharp glance at the small brown woman with a pierced nose and covered head. She didn't fit into this, an American supermarket. And what, asked the cashier, are you willing to pay for this? She held the head of lettuce in the air. It reflected off her rhinestone glasses and the hairspray in her hair. But this, said my mother, is America. I thought there was no barter here. Said the cashier. There's give and take all over the world. What made you think you'll be different here? She shook her head in her plastic hair. But I have money. My mother tried to act like she didn't care. Her English broke all over her and fell apart in the air. But the cashier cackled, no, 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 my dear. What I want is here. She jabbed a nail, silver painted and crooked, at my young mother's stomach, which I had just begun to share. That's the price you'll have to pay, my dear, for this fresh lettuce. Each egg that erupts into a new-blown head shall be the property of this here supermarket, country, and nation. And don't even think of running, because we've got the goods on you. Along with every other immigrant, we've got your passport, your foreign passport right here. She made to reach into her too tight jeans, but my mother, she ran out of there. The shopping girl openly laughed behind her, and the lines and lines of customers just stood there with their stupid grins. My mother ran, the door opened by itself. My mother ran, but she still found herself in a foreign land, far away from home. Okay, I'm going to read two more poems, and then I'm going to end with a poem by the poet Kamila Aisha Moon, who passed away 2 months ago. And I'm packing up my stuff, and I ended up finding an old anthology with her work in it, and that the poem just felt so perfect for the reading, so I wanted to honor her tonight by sharing that. So the poem that I'm going to read, one of them is in the book, and one of them is the twin of the one that's in the book, but I don't think I didn't submit it to Kazim because it's often been very like a controversial poem, but I will read it tonight. And it's called Will Heaven Look Like Zinat Aman? And so, you know, I grew up in New York City in the 70s and 80s, and I'm using that Zoom filter right now, I think, I don't know. My mom used to tape Bollywood movies from my uncle's store. Like, she would illegally make these movies, cassettes for him. It was VHS back then. And so in order to tape VHS, you have to play like the entire movie from beginning to end every single time you make a copy. So my entire childhood was just like all these like really scandalous Bollywood movie soundtracks. And Zinat Aman was, one of my first crushes. She was just this gorgeous diva of an actress. So this is called Will Heaven Look Like Zinat Aman? My mother used to tape Indian movies illegally all day long. There'd be 3 or 4 movies going, 2 VCRs whirring, getting all technologically horny with the high-pitched songs of the young female stars, the lucky ones who got to dance with Amitabh. Their bodies would be bursting out of their saris. Their lips would be all moist and warm, but untouched, and Amitabh would be there all funny with his long, long body and his eyes brown and warm. My mother used to tape Indian movies illegally all day long. There'd be 3 or 4 movies going, 2 VCRs whirring, their frequencies all turned on by that subtle pre-orgasmic flurrying that filled every lovesick song. And it filled me so that even as a child, loving and kissing were in my dreams, and I could never quite walk from point A to point B, but would instead jump and bounce, humming something about eyes looking like oceans or the sea in a storm. And at night before going to sleep, I'd think about the kids who went to kindergarten with me and imagine all sorts of adventures and all sorts of dances and songs. But my mother, she's different now. And although she is still singing verses from the Quran, it's not the same. There isn't any kind of tingling in my feet or my gut. When I go home, I wrap my dupatta around me. My mother hugs me in between prayers. She doesn't get off her janamaz. But I remember her being different. I remember her smiling or angry, but always something, at least something that felt like lightning in a storm. That was her before. Now she's like a volcano rumbling as she sits there reading namaz. And I wonder if when her spirit passes, when her soul starts and leaves her body, and she goes to that place she'd rather be, will Jibreel look like Amitabh, or will heaven look like Zinat Aman? Okay, so one more of my own poems. So different without an audience. I cannot tell what is going on. But I'm going to read one more of my own poems, which is in the anthology, Ami's Cassettes. And so, you know, while my mom, she would have to give these VHSs to my uncle to sell for $1 at his store, but she loved the music. And so what she would do is she would put a tape recorder, like an old school boombox, next to the TV and then record the songs on a cassette that she really liked. It was like a total copyright-free zone in our house. And but, you know, for those of you who've ever taped on a cassette, you know that you don't only capture what you want, you also capture other background noises. So this is called Ami's Cassettes. The other day, I found my mother's cassettes from the 80s. They were full of love songs from Indian movies. Ami used to tape them from the TV while she cleaned. And I thought back to the orange carpets, the sofas with their plastic, the way everything was dusted and perfect. I tried to fill the memory with her music, to come up with something peaceful, something splendid. But the tapes, they just didn't play that way. You see, they caught all the background noise, the sound of babies crying, children fighting, fire engines going, and the sound of a child being hit. The children wouldn't stop making noise until my mother's own voice would break. Then there would be nothing but the sound of her crying and the sound of music in a language my mother was dying to hear. And I thought back to the orange carpets, the way I would press my face against them and against the plastic sofas until the perspiration would make it stick, and listen to the sound of her crying and all the love songs of longing. They promised everything missing in our house was orange carpets, everything missing in the plastic, everything she ever recorded. Thank you. And my last poem will be one from my dear friend Aisha. And I found it in this, you know, as I was packing, I found this old Kaveh Khanum anthology. And if you don't know about Kaveh Khanum, they're amazing. And it just felt like such a perfect poem because of, you know, just thinking about transitions and passing and how will we be remembered? What secrets do we hold? What secrets, you know, go beyond us after the grave? And how can we live our most authentic selves? Resurrecting Great Aunt Frances by Camila Aisha Moon. They laid you out in pink, rosed your cheeks, painted you a saint between psalms. Faced with whether to teach or marry, you chose 40 ruler straight years and left here pristine at 74. I saw you a handful of times, said yes, ma'am, and told you about my A's in class. I remember how your veined hands cupped my cheeks, the Hallmark cards filled with 5s and 10s, one of 3 gray-haired ladies with oversized pocketbooks who told me my father was a sneaky boy. You were his stern spinster aunt he never tried to know, the one who chose books over babies. But looking at sepia photos of your solid 6-foot frame, your face more handsome than pretty, I wonder if labor laws and chalkboards saved you. What stories could your blue house snug between cold mind become tell, bosoms tell? What echoed after school bells? Someone held you as your sisters married off. You carried yourself like a loved woman. Was she there when you laid you out in pink, rosed your cheeks, painted you a saint between psalms? Did she tremble before her sweetheart once more, sit in the back pew as family filed by? So support New Moon's anthology, support Camila Aisha Moon and her family through buying her work as well. And I will just end there. Thank you for inviting me to this reading.
Thank you so much, Bushra. It was so great to hear your work, and thank you for bringing Aisha into the space as well. Our next reader is going to be the organizer of this event, a very intrepid Tanzila Ahmed, also known as Taz, who is just an amazing poet and performer and activist, and she connects all of those things together.
Thank you for that introduction. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you for this event. I'm so excited to be doing this at Book Soup. I was talking about this earlier when we were in the green room. This was the first place I've ever done a book reading, and it's just great to be able to bring this work into this space. It was also for a Muslim American book. It was Love Inshallah. So it's a big decade-long full circle. I also didn't bookmark my page, so give me 1 second to pull that up. While I'm pulling it up, I wanted to, Kazim, if you're still there, I wanted to know, do you know how many writers are in this book?
Hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. I think it's like 65.
That's amazing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I found my spot. I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna jump in right in the middle. This is, I'm calling it speculative nonfiction, which Kazim's been teasing me about, but you'll see. We would meet in dirt-filled backyards and empty warehouses. We'd meet weekly, a mishmash of Muslimas who all felt the need to prepare, given the current regime change. In the group, I had secretly gathered the leader of a Desi rock band, an activist hijabi, an amateur fighter writer, and more, about 10 women in total. These were all people I adored. Most I'd met through organizing on community causes. Many I stood side by side with at protests. These were my ride or die in this fight. It was the first time, though, I was sure that B had been surrounded by so many Muslim women. He was unfamiliar with the customs and the culture, but he didn't care. He was here to provide a service. Here, take this. The instructor, B, handed me a rubber blade. My fingers tingled as I grasped the handle. It was black, about 4 inches long, with a blade that would bend. In my hand, it felt heavy, weighted. I glanced around. She was holding a flashlight, and she was holding a 2-foot-long wooden stick. We were all holding different types of weapons as we prepared to train. I pretended to stab myself with a rubber blade in my arm. It might not cut, but it would bruise. It felt real. It was real. We Muslimas stood in line, breathed into the ground, and then breathed into the air. Deep breath, grounding our existence. Then we walked side by side, taking steps in a triangle as we found our center. And then we learned to fight. I had never felt so alive. It's so intimate, knife fighting. To stab someone, you need to feel their breath on your skin, their fingers on your arms, your waist in their grasp. You can feel their heat evaporating off their body. You can smell their scent. You can see the tears in their eyes. You can feel their blood rushing through their veins. And then you can feel your own blood. I want you to approach me aiming here in slow motion, B said, and pointed to his side. We are going to practice this move 5 times. I breathed in deep. In slow motion, with the rubber blade in my left hand, I felt his bare arm run against mine. I pinned B's arm under my elbow. We were uncomfortably close, and I could feel my breath catch in my throat. I could feel his heat on mine, and I wondered if he could hear my rapid heartbeat. Trust yourself, he said. He was teaching me how to disarm someone holding a weapon, but in slow motion, it felt like an intimate dance. I took a deep breath and did the move again. This time, I could feel his muscles shift and heard the knife drop from his hand. They can't scare us into being silent unless they can scare us for being loud, he said. In the days of fear, I rarely experienced human touch. I had isolated myself from romance, from physical friendships, from hugging people too long. My fingers sparked when getting change from the cashier, and my skin tingled when I accidentally bumped into strangers. Every skin touch made me want to cry. In these days, the only time I experienced real human touch was in Fight Club. It was the oxytocin that rushed through my system each week after Fight Club that made me think I was falling in love with everyone I touched. At least, that's what I told myself. The regime change meant people that looked like me were on the news a lot. The Nazis were emboldened by the anti-Muslim dog whistles of their leader. Through the encrypted text messaging app in secret groups, we'd share links to stories of Muslimas getting attacked. There was a story of the young hijabi woman on the subway in Portland where 2 men died from being stabbed protecting her from an Islamophobe. There was the elderly Bangladeshi auntie that was walking on the New York City streets who was stabbed as her husband walked behind her. A woman's hijab was pulled back before she was attacked with a knife. Each secret fight club session felt more urgent than the last, as these incidences were fresh on our mind. Each class was adjusted based on the trauma in the news that week. After the hijab pull hate crime, we learned how to turn quickly so that we would use a scarf as a weapon. There were rumors that the Nazis were going to show up at protests protecting the rights of Muslims. The class after that, we learned how to wield the protest sign as weapons. I didn't want fear to drive me, but I didn't know what being driven by love looked like. All I knew was that I was scared and my friends were scared and people that looked like us were scared. What I didn't expect was how full of love and adoration I felt for the Muslimas in Fight Club after each class. I love them so much and I knew I'd wield a knife for them if they needed me to. It was Asata Shakur that said, "We must love each other and protect each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains." In this time of strife, though this started as a mission to combat fear, I found myself in the depth of a different kind of falling in love. A secret sisterhood of the Muslimas had been formed. When we crossed in public, like at parties or protests, we didn't acknowledge how we secretly were meeting each other weekly. Other people could sense the bond that had been created between us, but no one knew why. How could they? A Muslima girl gang learning to knife fight was beyond their comprehension. Muslimas were supposed to be meek, objects, submissive, but we didn't need them to know otherwise. This was our little secret. And I'm going to end it right there. And yes, a lot of the paintings behind me, Zohra, are my own doing. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for that reading. We're going to hear next from my very old friend Zohra, Saed, who I also know from decades ago in New York, in those crazy, surreal days after September 11th, 2001, where we thought we were living in a really bad movie. And we thought it couldn't possibly get worse. And I want to shout out, I saw Dulo in the chat. I wanted to shout out Dulo, who was there at the very beginning too, with the rest of us. We were little children. And I also want to shout out our friend Parag Kandar, who back in the day worked at Asian American Writers Work. He's the person who connected us actually in the beginning. So it's so good to be with you, Zohra, and you look great. And I can't wait to hear your piece.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And I remember all that. Oh, it was such good times. Remember when the Asian American Writers Workshop was in the basement and we'd all go down there and do like readings, and then I had a curfew and I had to like run home and someone else would have to read my poem for me.
Yeah.
Muslim girl dramas. So I'm so honored to be here and amongst friends, amongst new friends, amongst, I don't know, this exciting collection of poems. I actually thought I was going to do my acting first, but I'm going to do my Remy. I guess I'm going to do my my Aquanet Days. So I was born in Afghanistan. I then was in Saudi Arabia, where my grandmother. It's very distracting to look at just myself at a reading, but this is what we're gonna do. And then I came to Brooklyn and grew up in Brooklyn. So the story, this is my very first short story, and I'm very excited. It's of course 3 pages because I'm a poet transitioning into short stories. It's called Aquanet Days, and if you remember those Aquanet hairsprays, and if you grew up in the 80s and your hair was like flat like mine and it didn't stand up, you needed a hell of a lot of hairspray for that. It is Sunday in Brooklyn, 1988. The Duhtara, or the girls from Avenue Y, would the Avenue I, sorry, I live on Avenue I. The girls from Avenue Y come over, sneak Aquanet hairspray into my bathroom, and give me a makeover. At 11 years old, I'm introduced to the tall magenta bottle with fishnet pattern. The packaging itself is a promise to turn my hair into luscious, wind-swept waves that look touchable, yet retain its stiff form. Not one of three sisters think to open the window, focused as they are on turning my pin straight hair into waves. It's not easy to look like a teen Lisa, especially without the cult jam backing you up. When I choke on the spray and my nostrils burn, be a big girl is all they say as they tease up my extreme Uzbeki hair, nudging me on the shoulder for me to thank them for their patience. Tashakur. Your Farsi is stiffer than my hair. Tush tush to you too. They lean on each other's shoulders and giggle. They catch reflections of themselves in the bathroom mirror and frost their lips first, then mine with Wet n Wild tangerine lip gloss. These girls with fluffy feathered hair and banana clips with faux hawks are the ideal Afghan girls, دختر کابلی. They listen to Amazoir and freestyle, dance to both in the same swivel hips and arms way. Every chance to look at a mirror is another dab at lip gloss or blue eyeliner and another eruption of hairspray. Their names are assimilable. A benefit of having modern Kabuli parents, Dana, Angela, now spelled Angela, and Helena, the stresses on the wrong letter so they still sound exotic, says the teacher with the mustache and the roaming eyes. Their apartment is better, they say. It overlooks Avenue Y on the corner just above the Russian delicatessen, even if it is smaller and has only 3 rooms besides the bathroom. The living room, also now their parents' bedroom, with a tushak, a foam mattress covered in rich burgundy and gold-tinseled velvet. For their son, a medium-sized couch. The 3 sisters share one queen-size bed covered in a lush blanket with a floral patterns that they bought from Kabul. A few of the small things they are able to transport. They sleep in a row. Traditional is better, they say. Khala to me and Madar to them floats in an air of melancholia and rose water. At home, she occupies this cushion most of the time, and when she comes over, she sits in father's armchair, the aram chair. Did you know it? It's not about the arms, but it's about resting. It's from the Farsi word aram, rest. She teaches us like she used to back in Kabul. Khala with a long face the color of ivory and a beauty mark just to the right of her nose. She is the ideal Afghan beauty with jet black hair. A Butaberaham, a statue without emotions, is her stoic expression and the title of her favorite Amazigh song. But it isn't because she puts on airs. It is her heart that is the statue, or the mechanical part of her. Hala, an early heart transplant patient, had blood filter in and out of her through a tube. When she lifted her opaque black silk veil, then you'd see where her heart was cut out and the plastic mechanic box in its place. At 15, Angela is the closest to me in age, but she is shokh, mischievous. When we go to the Madejo's video rental shop on Avenue Z, she flirts with a pimply checkout boy and gets early copies of the latest teen films. This is how we find awkward films that end with jocks chasing cheerleaders, somehow only in towels. The sisters giggle incessantly, take notes on makeup, hair clips, and imitate the way the actresses stretch the words to the last syllable of words, lilt up, imitating the way the actresses stretch the words, up like, so they lilt up till they, hold on a minute. They lilt up like smiles, and they learn to overuse the word like. Sometimes they lean down and generously whisper a joke or a secret into my hair, but my eager ears never catch the thread. Sada, simple. They cluck their tongues like old aunties and shake their heads. I'm hopeless. The Dokhtar Kabli are Texans, really, who miss the dry heat and twang of Austin and hate New York winters. 3 sisters, an unemployed father who proclaimed to be a distant relative of the former king, but aren't all Afghan exiles. A heart patient mother and elder brother who works 3 part-time jobs to support the entire family. One night, Angela asks for my mother's earrings over the phone. Like, Zole, why don't you bring me Khala's earrings? Come tonight and I have a gift for you from Texas. And that's all it takes to get me to sneak the yellow Shringari out from Madar's jewelry box. Angela plots further with me. Say that you are like buying milk. And so I say I need milk desperately and smuggle out my mother's yellow rhinestone studded teardrops. At the door of their third floor walk up, the smell of cold cuts and pickles from downstairs are strong. Angela greets me with a hug that turns me into a limp doll. She whispers in the dark kitchen so that her parents don't know I'm there. She speaks, I listen, privileged to be privy to a 15-year-old's dramas. These earrings are perfect with my magenta sweater dress and yellow stirrup pants. His heart will be water in my hands. Don't you think so? I do, I say. Of course it has to work, but I have no idea. In her galley kitchen, the exhaust fan is filled with light yellow grease from cooking kormas and palaus. She stares just over my shoulder and talks to her own reflection in the toaster on the counter. It is Angela in front of me and the silver reflection of Angela's face behind me. I sit patiently, chilled by the opened window, and listen to her daydream about being the most beautiful girl in a school crowded with heavily made up Italian girls. She weighs the earrings in her hand as if they are currency. Warm breath, stifled giggles, and a cookie in my palm. I am back on my way down the narrow, steep stairwell. The earrings belong to Madar, and I will have to answer to her. But this walk alone at 11 p.m., running such a grown girl errand, and sneaking like water to and from my apartments at night is all mine. Yeah, that's it. That's how I learned to put makeup on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love listening to that. It
Thank
takes me
you.
back to back in the day, back in the 80s. Wow. So we are going to close our readings with a really, really special event, which is we are going to now hear from the gang, actually. The next presenter is Rami El-Etreby, and Rami is a writer, a performer, a storyteller, an educator, but he's also an actor. And he's now also a playwright. And so he is, I said there was drama in this anthology. I didn't just mean the drama of our childhoods. I meant an actual piece of drama. And so Rami's play, we're going to do a scene from Rami's play. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Kazim. And thank you to, I first want to thank my three other authors for being here tonight. And thank you so much for just being a part of this book. And we're all like a big happy family in print. And it's like so beautiful. And my piece in this anthology is a family drama. So the four of us on the screen are going to be playing members of a family. We got Taz, who's going to be playing Yasmin, and we got Zohra, who's going to be playing Layla, and we got Kazim, who's playing Muhammad, and I'm playing Yusuf. Now, Yusuf and Yasmin are brother and sister, and Layla and Muhammad are our parents. I just wanted to give a little context because what we're going to be reading is scene 2. There are 2 scenes in the play. And so scene 1, it's first night of Ramadan. The family's gathering as they always do, and they're getting ready for the sun to go down so they could break their fast. Yusuf hasn't arrived. He's running late. However, he has shared that he has some good news to share with the family, some exciting news to share with the family. The rest of the family doesn't know what this news is. Yasmin is hoping that Yusuf has finally decided to go to get a degree, maybe go to law school. And Yusuf shows up at the end of scene 1, right before the sun is about to set. right before they're about to break their fast, and he reveals that he has decided to join the LAPD, the police department. So we're going to start with scene 2, which is shortly after Maghrib. And I'm going to be reading the stage directions as well as the part of Yusuf, so hopefully it's not too confusing. Are we ready, cast?
We're ready.
We're ready. Here we go. Thank you for doing this. This is the first time I'm hearing these words out loud, so it's a big deal. Scene 2, shortly after Maghrib. The family sits at the dining table. They are eating silently. They look at each other. We start with Layla.
Oh, I'm sorry. That is because you're hungry.
We're starting on page
Sorry,
107.
page 107.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. We're doing
I'm so
scene
sorry.
2.
Scene 2. So how does it taste?
It's absolutely delicious. Thanks, Mom.
God has really blessed your hands.
Honestly, I can't taste a thing.
Pregnancy mess up your taste buds or something?
Or maybe I lost my fucking appetite.
Yasmin.
What's your problem exactly? I finally found something I want to do with my life. Isn't that what you wanted?
I never thought you would want to join the police. When did this become a thing for you?
How many years have you been telling me to do something important with my life, to make a difference?
I told you to find something positive and meaningful, something that contributes to society. The police don't do that. They enforce society's ills.
Yasmin, the police are civil servants. They keep us safe and protected.
I'm sorry, Dad, but this is just bullshit.
Yasmin, watch your mouth.
The police are there to protect and serve us. That's a myth. They harass people, mostly Black and brown people, like us.
Come on, Yasmin. Not all police are like that.
Have you forgotten that I'm a public defender? I see this every day. My clients are all Black and brown people, and they are the ones that get targeted and detained and arrested and incarcerated and deported and basically removed from society.
And I'm sure none of them commit crimes. They're all innocent.
My clients are regular people. They are not criminals. They are poked and prodded and provoked by the police, and they get severely punished for the most minor infractions. My job is to make sure that their most basic human rights are protected, because their rights are violated every day by the same people who you say are supposed to protect them.
That's great. I'm glad you do that work.
Are you? Because it sounds like you're ready to put on a badge and become someone who menaces those innocent people for a living, you asshole.
Yasmin.
Yasmin, be fair. Not everyone is innocent. There are dangerous people out there who commit real horrific crimes. We need the police to keep the rest of us safe from people like them.
Exactly. I'm signing up to keep innocent people protected from danger and to bring people to justice when they commit atrocities against each other. I'm trying to serve the people.
We're proud of you, son.
We are?
You've got to be kidding me.
We raised you children to be American and to be proud of that. We moved here to this country so we could have a better life with more opportunities for you, so you could choose whatever you want. Alhamdulillah.
I don't understand what you're saying, Dad. So all being an American means is having pride in your country. How blind is our pride supposed to be? Are we not allowed to be critical of the government and the way it wields its power over the people?
You would rather us live back home in Egypt, where you would not be allowed to do half the things you get to do here. You should not take your rights for granted.
I do not take any of my rights for granted. I know how precious my rights are. I fight for my clients' rights every day.
We're proud of you too, Yasmin. Please relax.
Don't tell me I'm not a proud American. I'm the one serving the people. I make sure this government is held accountable for what it says and does to the people.
Habibti, it's not good for the baby for you to get upset.
It's not good for this baby, this Black Muslim baby, to have his uncle be working for those who are monitoring Muslim communities and countering violent extremism. It's not good for the Black Muslim baby to have his uncle working for those who are destroying families every day by putting Black and brown people in cages, if not killing them directly.
You think I'm going to contribute to the surveillance of Muslims and the killing of Black and brown people?
Aren't you, by association?
He can be an opportunity for change.
What do you mean, change?
He can show his fellow police officers that Muslims can be good people too, that Muslims can be good Americans too.
This good American stuff is killing me. We have to prove we're good Americans by turning against our own people. What's next, Yusuf? After a couple of years, will you decide to become an ICE officer and detain Muslims from entering this country? How many brown people like us will you detain and deport if you're in your lifetime, you think? You, as a child of immigrants, what a good American. What a hypocrite.
I have no desire to detain or deport people. All I want to do is keep American citizens safe.
How about those that are undocumented? Do they deserve your protection? Do they deserve to be safe too?
Look, like Dad said, I can be an opportunity for change. I can help change the culture of racial profiling and brutality from the inside. I mean, shouldn't there be diversity in law enforcement? Or should only white people be police officers? Is that what you want?
You think you'll change them before they change you? It's a whole institution. You know how many cops I've met who are people of color and have no compassion for the people they are handcuffing? Many come from the same neighborhoods they now stop and frisk people in. Their badges make them so drunk with power that they think they're better than their own people. They forgot that they are exactly the same.
Well, I don't think I'm better than anybody else, okay? I'm just trying to do something meaningful with my life. I care about justice. I care about people. I'm sorry I'm not as smart as you, Yasmin. I'm sorry I never went to law school like you did and that I can't argue as well as you can. I'm sorry I'm not hardworking enough to become an engineer like you, Mom, or start my own business like you, Dad. I'm sorry I've been a slacker my whole life. I just think joining the LAPD will be really good for me. You know, it'll provide me with some discipline for the first time ever and a sense of duty. Whatever I do, I want it to matter. I want to serve the people. I really do. Yasmin, you have to believe that my heart is in the right place. I promise you and your Black Muslim baby that I will be one of the good ones. I will never do anything to hurt anyone.
I really want to believe that.
Inshallah.
I think this is a good time to take a break for some chai and kanafe.
Yalla, let's do it. I'll go make the tea.
No, Mom, you relax. You and I do it, Dad. Yusuf and Muhammad go into the kitchen. Muhammad gives Yusuf a hug and pats him on the back. Yusuf grabs some plates. Muhammad grabs the dessert and cuts it into little pieces. Yusuf places a piece on each plate.
How do you think Jamal will respond to this?
I don't know, but I don't want to be there when he finds out.
I hope you can talk some sense into him.
Yes, I hope so too. Inshallah.
End of episode. Oh, all right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't make it clear, unfortunately, that Yasmin was pregnant and her husband, who wasn't there, was a Black Muslim man. But hopefully you got that.
Yeah, it came out in the story.
How did it feel to hear these words out loud for the first time?
It was strange because, I wrote these words a while ago. And so I never actually read it out loud before I submitted it. And now it's something I realize that I probably could have at least heard it out loud, because plays are meant to be read, even though it's in a book, right? So it's actually going to be read, not necessarily recited. So it's something I would think about when writing for oration versus writing for the page. And I felt like I wrote that for the page as I was listening to it, because people speak differently.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I kind of suck as an actress, so just to let you know, I don't think it was your words. It was amazing. It was a great play.
But I mean, you bring up something important, which is the importance of being able to do a workshop reading or whatever the lingo is in the theater world, where where other people can actually hear what you've done and give you feedback. And I do think with the drama, as with poetry, I mean, we talk about it a lot in creative writing spaces and academic spaces, wanting to have an audience that actually understands your characters and understands what you're doing. And so you really want to have people who, have listened to these types of families have arguments, to know how the, not just the language that they speak. There's that, the way to communicate, the way, like, say, native Arabic speakers speak English. There's the texture of their own language. But there's also, I feel like there's the structure of the argument. And I often will watch shows where it's like plays or TV shows or movies where it's like a white family arguing. And I'm like, we just don't argue like that. We don't yell at each other the same way. We're like, you to talk back to your elder, there's like a way that you kind of like move around topics. And there's the, there's the way that the conversation gets interrupted. Like, it was kind of fun to listen to this family because it felt like the kind of family that I grew up around, the way that we talk to each other, perhaps that the way that, especially the two kids who were born in America, like, they talk to each other more directly and they kind of get into it with each other. And Muhammad and Layla are kind of like, oh, well, it is not so serious, or something. The police are good. They want to protect us. So I thought that was really great. And, that's important for us to kind of build those communities too, for a playwright like you to actually have actors and people to give feedback who know the spaces that you're writing about. I think it's so important.
Well,
thank you for
I was just going to say we have a little time for Q&A for people who are in the audience. You can ask a question down below. We are a little over time, but I just want to have a conversation with people, so we can have a Q&A for about another 10-15 minutes, I believe. I don't know how much time we were actually given for this. Great. So let's just talk then, and do ask questions on the little button down below. I do want to say, like, reading as Yasmin, I felt like those are all words I definitely would have said.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's a fun piece. I have a question for Zohra, actually. Zohra, I've read a lot of obviously over the years, I've read so many of your pieces, and I'm just curious to know how it's been for you. You've traveled this trajectory from writing like these very, very intense, very personal pieces, from your community, from growing up, like all that kind of stuff. And then also we've all done it, but on the other side, trying to respond to some of this external stuff that's been going on, responding politically, or in your case, like actually editing the anthology of Aquanet writing, which I know is like super important to you for however many years you worked on it. So I guess I'm just curious to know how you felt how you felt the need to balance those considerations. I don't know if you even feel like you've been successful at balancing them, or if you have any secrets or regrets. I don't know. I just feel like in general, I'd love to hear you reflect on all those decades of work,
Oh, that's really a good question, actually. I think I started writing, and I always feel like poetry was a way to practice performance and practice being part of a community. And, I think it's really important to be part of a literary community, that you support one another. And I've always loved that sense of family, because I think I didn't have that sense of large, big, sort of family when I came to the US. It was very small. We had a lot of our losses were during the Soviet-Afghan wars. So for me, it was like writing poetry was kind of preserving the photos, the relationships, these phone calls, making sense of phone calls, letters, and creating a sense of togetherness in poetry. And then when I started reading with the community, I was like, oh, this is so much fun. You get like cool friends. We talk about the same things and we go through the same. So for me, it's all been kind of part of it. Building an anthology is building a community, as you know. Running a press, a nonprofit press, is also part of building a community, because I run with my best friend Rob Morris Upset Press, and we publish when we can in our most unprofessional way poetry and novels. We're getting better at it because now we have a university press distributing us, but we really like started out with like publishing books and Rob winning gambling money, and then like publishing a book and then like sticking it into Barnes and Noble shelves. Like all of it was really like like being mischievous kids still, even as in our 20s. So I feel like all of that has grown, and my scholarly work is like that archival work and resurrecting stuff and translating. So I feel like they're all harmonious and together. I mean, I like poetry. I write a lot of it. I write strange epic poetry too, and that doesn't always go anywhere. But I enjoy poetry. I feel like now I'm shifting into a lot of short stories and things like that because I just have more to say, and it's just more is like coming out. There's so much more to deal with. If academic writing one way, featuring people to talk about, especially with Afghanistan, there isn't even one Afghanistan to talk about or one time period. So we need that community. So I think a plurality of voices and just a singular space. I think that's what I believe in. So do I have regrets? No.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Kazim, oh, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, Bushra, a question. I wanted to talk about Colonize This because I know that the second printing came out. And for me, I don't know who was your piece in the first one, the first book? I just remember there was like a story by a South Asian writer in the first book that I read in the early 2000s. And that was like really one of the first moments where I saw myself in activist decolonial narrative. And that set me on this path of writing and being part of trying to find communities like that. And I'm curious what's it been like to like publish that second anthology.
Yeah, I wonder who you're thinking of, Alma, Saed, or Tanmeet Sethi maybe. So I, like Kazim, I edited Colonize This. The first edition came out. Not like as you, I didn't put in my own writing. Daisy and I wrote a foreword together for the first book. In the second book, we wrote separate forewords because we are not 26 and can hang out all day eating cookies, writing together, as we did in 2002. So we wrote separate ones. But we felt that, over the years, we didn't think. So Colonize This came out, God, almost 20 years ago. It's a book on women of color and feminism and activism and intersectionality before people were using the word intersectionality. And of course, our foreparents were talking about intersectionality. Audre Lorde, Alice Walker, everyone was talking about it. We just weren't using that specific word. But I think that there is a way that we felt that we were waiting for another book to come out, and we felt that because of the internet, you maybe didn't need a book because there was so much amazing writing happening among the next generation. But then we also felt that there's something special about a book. I always say the book will be there when they turn the lights off on us. You can still pass that information on from one to the other. And we just felt that so much had changed. We wanted to include trans writers. We wanted to include stories about Black Lives Matter. We wanted to include stories about abortion, especially as choice. I say abortion because we had a story by an abortion doula in the new book. And just reproductive justice, what it looks like 20 years later. It's totally different. What it looks like for this generation to have had a Black president, what it looks like to have had a Trump president, just like all the things that, I remember as Kazim and Zohra were saying, like, we thought it was pretty bad in 2001, and we didn't realize like how much more would happen. But it felt very empowering Daisy and I worked on that book through most of the Trump presidency. And it really felt as if it was something that we were doing and it came out in 2018. So it before the pandemic. And I think that we did feel that this was our form of resistance towards the regime as it was. And the book has, it's led to lots of people becoming activists. And I think that that's so special. And I feel lucky to have done it with Daisy because we we work well together.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you
me,
for asking.
it's definitely one of the books that have changed my life.
Oh, thanks.
Definitely. And
You
I
know,
hope
like,
that being parts of these kinds of anthology, I don't know, I felt like Love Inshallah also did that for a lot of people. So I just love anthologies. I think I talk to a lot of people that are like, and don't work on anthologies. They like, you know, take away time. I was like, I love anthologies. I love this community that's created and getting the opportunity to play with your friends.
Yeah.
We met because of Love Inshallah, right? And Salam Love, the book that came afterwards. That's, you know,
what was the book that came after it?
Salam Love. So Love Inshallah was on was Muslim American women. I don't remember what the subtitle was.
Secret Love Lives of American Muslim Women.
Yeah. And Salam Love was men on love, sex, and intimacy. And then I have a piece in that one. And so that was like Taz and I met, and I sort of like, that's when I first started like getting into, you know, going into like writer events. And, you know, with my theater background, I never considered that I would have a piece in an anthology. And, you know, thankfully, you know, I have another. I think I have 4 at this point, actually, which is very nice.
Anthologies make sense in terms of like the multiplicity of voices and the collective. And I was going to ask you, Kazim, like, because I know with Colonize This, well, the first one came out before social media, so it was all word of mouth. But was this anthology also a word of mouth? Like, did you seek out writers that you were interested in?
Yes.
Did you? Yeah.
I did. I mean, I did a call for work that I circulated as wide as I could. But then I did write to specific people and ask them, you know, the people that I knew that I wanted in there, I wrote to and asked them to send stuff in. Now, out of the 4 people here, I can't remember if I wrote to you all directly or not. I think that I did. Forgive me, but it was after I got stuff in for the call, I looked at everyone that was there and then thought, okay, who else do I need to get in there? You know, and so I did write to specific people. There were people who didn't respond or didn't want to send stuff or had like different relationship to being identified as a Muslim writer specifically. So if there's people that you can think of, like big Muslim writers that didn't send anything, it's one of those reasons. They either they decided not to, or else, at least in one case, this brilliant younger Muslim poet, you know, whose work I adore. I wrote to him and asked him to send, and he said, I have like a complicated relationship with Islam. I don't really know if I'm a Muslim anymore. And I kind of made the case to him, like, that I wanted to represent the range of people that he determined not to send. Then there was someone else I accepted into the anthology, a beautiful, beautiful poem, like really experimental and interesting. And he wrote, at some point in production, he wrote and said, so this anthology, like, is it like specifically like Orthodox Islam? Like, or is this like whatever? And I'm like, dude, read the room. Like, do you Google me? So I explained, I said, well, no, this isn't a book that is going to include a multiplicity of perspectives, and it has a broad view of what Islam is. And he was like, oh yeah, no, I can't be a part of it. And he withdrew his piece. So, I mean, it's like.
He withdrew it because he thought it should have been more Orthodox?
Because mommy, daddy wouldn't approve or something. Like he was that it was not, he said. And plus, what is Orthodox Islam? I mean, I talk about this in my introduction. Like, there is no such thing. And like from old school Islam in like 580 AD, there is no such thing as Orthodox Islam. There were Islams like multiple streams immediately, you know. There's nothing is like, just because there's sort of one particular, and even within Sunni Islam, like what people think of as like the mainstream of Islam now is like, put 20 Muslims in a room and see if you can get them to agree on something. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to happen. There is no fundamental, and what we think of as fundamental Islam is like a 20th century phenomenon, you know, early 20th century phenomenon, direct response to European colonialism in the Muslim world. You know, I mean, we can argue it to death, but like all of those groups, they have their roots in Western intervention. You know, the Salafis, the Wahhabis, the Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, you know, all of those, you know, the new ones, they're all in response to Western colonialism. So that's like the irony. You know, you were talking about, Ramy, you were talking about like sex and sexuality. And I keep thinking about like all the ways that in particular Muslim sexuality and Arab sexuality, but Muslim sexuality specifically has always been like positioned as kind of deviant. And it's like, we're either perverts or we're like repressed. And somehow we're both, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just like we've been other in a way, like from like the Arabian Nights to now, like we're just like demonized in this way for whatever it is, you know? Yeah. So I don't know. What was this topic again? Oh, the anthology.
Yeah, just that's, I mean, I love the way you talk about Islam. I mean, I feel like fasting for Ramadan, it brought a lot of peace to a lot of us floating Muslims out there.
The floating Muslims. I mean, we're connected to it. We believe you know, in different days and times of Islam, we would have been accepted without trouble. It's just that, you know, things have calcified so much within our faith when they were never meant to be. It was always a religion of argument and reflection and poetry and philosophy and science and all of those things. If you want to talk about what classical Islam is like philosophical inquiry and argumentation and debate and discussion. It is not whatever people think it is now, where it's this authoritarian, patriarchal, repressive doctrine. That's never what it was at any point in its history.
Definitely. Yeah. When I was reading the intro that you wrote, Kazim, I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to take a class with Kazim.
Yes.
Like, I want like the history.
I'm not a religious scholar though, you know. I know what I know because I read and I listen to people. I'm not really like an expert. You know, there are people who really study this stuff. And if you talk to them, they'll agree, they'll tell you I'm right. But you know, they really know, they're the ones who know what they're talking about. You know?
I'll take whatever class you're teaching. I'll take it.
Well, I would love to have you there. You know, but you know what, Bushra, there were people where I was like, you know, okay, Dilruba Ahmed like needs to be in this book, so I have to write to her and tell her about it. Or like, you know, whoever it was, you know, and then I reached out to and asked, you know, to make sure that I had the people that I wanted in there. And then of course there were so many writers that I had no idea who they were, never encountered their writing before, brand new to me. And I'm so proud of the fact that there are many, many people in this book who have barely ever published before, even though they might have been writing for a long time and or they've never had a national audience before. So that's so important to me. And I feel like that's the best. Those are the pieces I feel the best about, you know, to kind of widen access to writers.
I love that you have 65 people though. Like that's the other thing is like there's so many, you know, Bushra, you were saying the floating Muslims, but like when you think about like 65, like there's that's such a big number that 20 years ago we were just like finding each other like in MySpace rooms and like, you know,
Yahoo groups. Yeah, and it could have been a lot more, to be honest. I mean, there were hundreds upon hundreds of submissions.
Amazing.
And I really, Red Hen was smart about it. They made an argument for like not a big fat giant anthology, you know. It could have been 700 pages long, very easily. But the fact that it's a little smaller, it's a little more curated. There are like fewer pieces by each person, so it's kind of like you really get to like one little sharp piece, and then it gives more space to more people. But I think it's a really good selection. And the only thing that I hope for is it just opens more opportunities up. You want to get to the point where you don't need the anthology anymore. I mean, that's the goal. But I'm glad that we were able to highlight it and just kind of create. I talk in the beginning about like, there's no way of saying what is a Muslim or what is Muslim writing, that it's so broad. But in a sense, like we do have cultural touchstones We do have like a certain spiritual groundings around like that are different from the so-called Judeo-Christian, which is a weird term, but the kind of Western tradition. Our traditions are different. We draw from multiplicity. We're formally engaged. There's work that the cross genreness of the work is like less from an aesthetic commitment to formal experimentation and more from like something deeper within the culture around the change in modes from between poetry and prose that is just, it's more common in Arabic and Farsi and Urdu literature. And so we do some of that, and lo and behold, I personally believe, it's my theory, that some of that same mode of experimentation that came into French literature, I think it came through the French Maghreb, like it came through Moroccan writers who were writing in the Muslim tradition, and then it kind of came in. It's just like with Marguerite Duras, like her experimental way of writing novels and prose is from Vietnamese literature. It's from traditional Vietnamese prose style. It's like that Ocean Vuong book that just came out is written in sort of that same format. They're drawing from traditional Vietnamese form of a poetic novel. And so Duras did that in The Lover, and then suddenly that's the rage in French literature. So all of that stuff came from the colonies, in other words, So I think that we are writing in this. I mean, there is such a thing as Muslim writing that sets it apart and distinct from writing in the Western tradition. So it was exciting to highlight that.
I love hearing all that.
Yeah, definitely.
Do we have any other questions? Rami, Zohra, did you have questions you had?
I had a question, actually. Well, Taz, like you said, your piece that you wrote, you called speculative fiction.
Speculative
nonfiction.
Speculative nonfiction. And that was like your first time writing in that genre, correct? And similarly, I guess for me, and I wrote a piece of dramatic fiction, which I'm not used to writing. I guess the question is, for everyone, was there something about this anthology that, did you try to push yourself, at least for Taz, like what made you want to push yourself to do something new? And for the others, when you had an opportunity to send something to this anthology, how did you want to show up? It's a weird question, I know.
I'll go. I think for me, it was definitely like, okay, yeah, it is a weird question. Like for me, I've been like really like lately playing with, like, I like jinn stories. I like playing with myths. I like confusing reality and non-reality. And I don't know if you all know El-Etreby. He has a book that came out, and he has like this one chapter which always kind of stuck in my head about like how he has this confrontation with a jinn. And I remember like chatting with him. I was like, did that really happen? And he was just like really vague about answering it. Then I just I reflected on that pretty deeply, I guess. Because I was like, oh yeah, I guess like our reality is like, we can make our reality whatever we want to make our reality through our writings. So when we were in Fight Club, which is fact, I wanted to imagine what it could have been. And so the story kind of ends with us like having magical powers, which I obviously don't have magical powers, but I wanted to like imagine, like play with that. And I think that's something that I would like to do moving forward. I think, like when you're writing poetry and like writing stories in at least for me in like my 20s, it was so much about like writing about like what we were experiencing and feeling. And now that I'm in my 40s, I don't want to write those stories anymore. I want to like reimagine telling narratives in new ways. So I'm really fascinated by African-American futurism. And we've been like in the work that I've been doing, we've been talking about Asian futurism and Muslim futurism. So I was kind of toying with this. I like this idea of using futurism as a way to do activism, right? Like activism, like writing about futurism is a form of imagining a different way of existing in the world. And I wanted to play with that genre. And I'm excited to see that Muslim futurism is turning into such a thing. there's this organization. I'm part of Vigilant Love. We're part of a coalition called that they did a convening in on September 11th, actually, around. Oh, cool! Yeah, it was what was the convening called? It was called Abolitionist Muslim Futures. I think that's the website. Or Muslims, something. I'll find it and I'll post it in there. And then I know that the Mipsters are doing stuff on Muslim futurism. I don't know. I just love like that. There's like this whole like space of Muslim futurism stuff happening. That was such a long answer for you. What you asked.
No, it's great. It's great.
Rami, do you want to answer the question for yourself first before?
Well, I guess just for me, I wanted to. I kept wondering whether, like, you know, because I identify as like queer, and my piece in Salam Love was like a very personal sort of story about like my queerness, and I felt like I wanted to push myself to see if I could write something about like being Muslim in America in a family that wasn't really about sexuality, that was more about interpersonal politics or whatever. And so this was like me pushing myself to see if there's other things I can write about. Yeah, it was really nice because Kazim actually, you came up to me in person and handed me the submission, like the postcard for submission. You're like, I'm going to edit this and I'd love for you to submit a piece of drama. It was such like, oh, okay, like I can try something else. I can try something new. And so that really opened me up to just pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And I just really appreciate the opportunity. Sometimes I wonder if I showed up, did I leave my queer, like sometimes I wonder, should I have had a queer piece in this book? But, it really doesn't matter. It comes from me. So
I'm so glad you told me that story. I felt I really wanted all genres in this, and I was thinking like, who can write a play that can go in here, And I don't know. I think I told you this before. Like, who's gonna write the words? Like, sometimes you have to step up yourself. Where it's like, where are the plays that exist for Muslim actors? Oh, I guess I have to write them, Or where's the who's going to start this organization to address this issue? I guess I have to do it. I don't mean have a martyr complex about things, but like, yeah, sometimes there's an opening, and if you wait for someone else to create that, you might be waiting for a long time. I'm glad you did it, and I'm really excited about the fact that it's going to. I'm hoping you. It sounds like you're planning on it, but I hope that you do continue to write this, this play. It's so interesting and compelling, and what is going to happen to these? And when the husband is his name Jamal? Yeah, like it's just so interesting. Layla has these little winks of the mother and the father are not like a fully united front. There are there's like little sparks in the scenes that you've written of some different outlooks there. So I think it'll be great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What about you, Bushra? Like, did you put yourself to submit different types of content?
Well, no. I mean, those of you who know me know that these poems are, well, I think we met at a reading in August and the submission deadline had passed and I just didn't even know about it. And you were like, just send me something by tomorrow. And these are poems that I think I was performing in the 90s. I've been working on short stories for the last 7 years, but I contractually can't publish them right now. But the book is coming out next year. It's like 31 new short stories, all about this queer Muslim teenager growing up in New York City. But maybe I'll read a bit of it from one of our next readings. But these poems were the ones that brought me to the communities that we're talking about, right? These were the ones that I was like performing at the fundraisers in the 90s and the So it was nice to have them like in this collection. But I mean, I love them, but they're definitely oldies. Oldies for me. Yeah.
What about you, Zohra?
Yeah, what about you?
I guess that's what, like,
how'd you pick your piece?
Where did this come from?
Oh, the piece. It was because it was the first short story. I think this was the only one that felt, like it was dealing with a conflict, and it ended up becoming longer and a longer story. So it won some kind of like short story contest. I got really excited. I was like, yay, I can do this, and I was really happy to have it shown here, or published here. It means a lot to me. Yeah. It's so nice listening to you all that I forget.
We're being recorded, and
I'm also on the panel, so I'm just like, what? Oh, I was just analyzing, thinking of what the syllabus should look like next year, what I should add, and then like you're asking me as a creator, so a little bit of that is happening. So
Maybe as
it's fun.
Maybe as a final question, we can all talk about what we're working on next. We've had 30 minutes of Q&A.
I just published, I'm not sure if you guys know, I just published a young adult fantasy novel in the Choose Your Own Adventure series. So it's like an interactive story, and it's Indo-centric. I call it Indo-centric. So it's sort of set in a world that centers South Asian myths and mythologies. And the first volume came out. It's called The Citadel of Whispers, and it's going to be a trilogy. So that's what I'm working on next. I'm working on two projects. I'm working on a nonfiction book about my experiences from 2011 to 2016, teaching yoga in Ramallah in the West Bank to Palestinian men and training yoga teachers. And then so that's one project. And then the other project is I'm working on the next volume in my Choose Your Own Adventure series.
And there's a few books also, like the Srila Ray book and the Sheila Chandra book and the...
Yeah, I edited this anthology.
You're so prolific. It's amazing.
It's inspiring.
Yeah, I've been keeping busy.
Yes.
But I just got elected chair of my department at UCSD, so I'll be slowing down. I got to do like that.
We can catch up with the reading then.
Yeah. That's the plan.
I just finished a novel. It was 31 short stories, but it's become a novel. It's called Roses in the Mouth of a Lion, and it's about the same character, Razia Mirza, from my first book, Corona, but her as a teenager in New York City. So it was definitely a long labor of love, and it'll be out next December.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, mashallah.
Thank you. Mashallah. What about you, Taz or Zohra?
I'm working on a collection of nonfiction braided kind of weird essays. That's been it's been fun to just kind of like break out a genre. So I do have a Substack for people. It's a monthly Substack. I play with stacked prose is what I'm calling it. And I also just finished a screenplay called Ramadan about two Muslim girls that go to the desert and do all the haram things the night before Ramadan starts. So first draft.
I love it.
Like jump in for second draft edits, but I'm giving myself some space before I jump back in. But that was a lot of fun to write.
That is a lot of fun to write.
Is that readable right now, or is that
I can send it to people who are interested, but it's a first draft. My dialogue is still needs to be polished up, but it's fun. I think it's fun. I have a character that is inspired by Ramy.
Ooh.
Called Ramy.
Well, because we're friends. We're real. So there's like we write each other. That's what's really lovely about this. Is this like the relationship sort of really exists off the page, and the page really can't quite even capture the magic. You know, you do your best. For me, I'm working on like I'm also sort of trying to do more film oriented stuff. So I'm like currently working on like my first short and I'm also, you know, attached to a couple theatrical projects. So I'm sort of just like getting more into sort of like the performative or, you know, storytelling.
That's beautiful.
I use Zohra.
So I feel kind of boring, but I've been doing a lot of my sort of academic writing, but trying to break away from that mode of academic writing, which is like dry and sort of name droppy. So I've been playing with reading art and diaspora Afghan art and poetry and writing through the 9th and 10th century philosophers. So I've been using Ibn Sina, and then I use Audre Lorde, and I use bell hooks, and I kind of use Baldwin to talk about divine and radical love intertwined in collaborative works. I mean, I guess I still like collaborations a lot, but collaborative works. And then in the kind of work like Langston Hughes, when he goes to Central Asia, that's like my dissertation that I'm turning into just more of a kind of a theory that's a supple theory that stretches and has a poetic voice to it that includes things that normally wouldn't be brought together. And I was trying to avoid using the traditional white theorists like another Foucault, another Althusser, or whatever, right? So just instead really focusing on getting Black philosophers to have that lens to look through and connect to this notion of, so I write a lot about love. And I'm publishing and working around the idea of love and Paiwandi, this idea of interconnectedness, which I see in Hughes because not only is he a poet, he's a translator, languages that he doesn't even know. So he uses 3 people to translate. He's an archivist. He collects things. He publishes other people's things. It's just something really incredible about Hughes that I've liked. So besides creative writing and the other stuff, this is kind of my, kind of bigger work that I've been interested in doing. I've had a lot of fun with.
I want to take your class too.
You can take my class anytime.
Your students love you. I've gotten to witness. Yes.
Students love you, Bushra. So it's like 11. I've been teaching since like really early. So like, hey.
Yeah, me and Zohra are on the East Coast time where we may
It's
need
late.
to bow out.
It's 10:38.
My 8-year-old is running around wild down there, and I have no idea what.
Oh no!
It's a half day tomorrow. It doesn't matter.
And I need a
Only
bio,
third grade.
seriously.
Well, thank you to Book Soup. Thank you to all of you. I'm so excited that we get to do book readings.
I'm excited too. I can't wait to be with you guys again in person or
virtual. I hope there's some in-person readings at some point.
Thank you so much.
For this book or others.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Yes. Thank you, Book Soup. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for coming. Get your copy of New Moons at the green button. Those were all beautiful readings. Thank you all so much for being with us. It was wonderful to hear you all in conversation as well and sharing what you're doing next. I'm really excited. So thank you. And I hope thank you everyone at home, and everyone have a wonderful rest of your night and week. Good night.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.